clock starts. Mr. Allen, Mr. Milan, you have 90 seconds.
Good afternoon. Experience counts. I've dedicated my life, 21 years, to representing victims of violent crimes and protecting families. As Dick Devine's top assistant, on a day-to-day basis, I supervise 900 prosecutors, 150 investigators, and hundreds of support staff, all very dedicated public servants, who are here today. None of these politicians that I'm running against can say they manage any type of firm or company like that. You know, we keep hearing the word change around here. For me, it's not a campaign slogan. It's how I've led my life. It's how I've run this office. I confronted wrongful convictions and false confessions long before any defense attorneys talked about it and long before any other prosecutor in this country did. I implemented mandatory videotaping of homicide investigations. I created the DNA review unit within our office. And I'm going to continue to create positive change in the Cook County State's Attorney's Office by reducing the homicide rate, by creating an internet predator unit and an identity theft unit. Unlike most of my opponents who've never prosecuted serious crimes, I've represented the families who've suffered from gangs, guns, and drugs. While these politicians were in the city council or in the county board, I was in the living rooms in the police departments representing these people.
Thank you, Mr. Milan. We
Thank
have to keep our eye on the 90 seconds. Next, Mr. Brewer.
Good afternoon. The state of the campaign is we are poised for victory. We have just a few dollars less than Barack, but we're gonna make do on what we got lacking in money, but certainly not in enthusiasm and interest in the campaign like the other candidates. We've been attending forums as well as the bus stops and train stops and churches throughout the county. I like the hand that I'm dealt right now. I think I'll hold and see what happens after that.
Thank you. For 90 seconds, Mr. Brookins, the status of my campaign as of today is.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Alderman Howard Brookins of the 21st Ward. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote in his letter from the Birmingham jail that an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. On our quest to justice in this county, things are going great. Our message is getting out, whether it is in the north side, the north suburbs, the west side, the west suburbs, the south side, and the south suburbs. We have adequate amount of money to get the message out, but more importantly, we have noticed that in our quest towards justice, that even the candidates on this forum have moved towards our position on many things that are going on within this county. As we talked in proviso about the inherent distrust that many minorities have about the system and how the system is not working for many people in this county, the message is starting to be heard and people are responding in like. When the Tribune writes that African Americans are 58 times more likely to be prosecuted and imprisoned for drug offenses than the majority, things are changing. Change is on the way. We are the agent of change. We are winning this race. We're in front, and we're going to win. Thank you.
Ms. Alvarez.
When I entered the race for Cook County State's Attorney, I entered that race as a career prosecutor and not as a career politician. Needless to say, my campaign has been untraditional, and it has been at a grassroots level. Early in the race, one of my opponents tried to knock me off of the ballot by challenging my petitions, but that did not deter me or my supporters. When a group of nuns from my alma mater, Maria High School, when their petitions were challenged, they were more than willing and ready to board a bus to come downtown to sign that affidavit and swear to their petitions. And I believe that is a true example of the type of campaign that I have been running. Since that time, I have been moving forward. My message has resonated with voters across this entire county. It's resonated across racial lines, gender lines, and across all political lines. And I have more than 20 years' experience of having the distinct privilege of being the voice of the victims of Cook County. County, and that is why I do this job. And I believe I stand out above any of my opponents here because of the true passion I have to do this job. I have recently been endorsed by Lieutenant Governor Pat Quinn, a true reformer and an independent political person here in Cook County and in Illinois. And today my candidacy gained crucial momentum by being endorsed by the Daily Herald newspaper. As we enter the home stretch, my campaign has the resources to continue to communicate on television in a very meaningful fashion. And we have an exciting wave of energy that I believe will bring victory on February 5th.
Thank you. Paul? And thank you for mentioning Maria High School, which is, as Mr. Mazur knows, something very important in the Green household. My wife's an alum. There you go.
All right.
Mr. Allen.
Good afternoon. The criminal justice system in Cook County is on life support right now. That system is broken and it needs to be fixed. And I agree with the Chicago Tribune's analysis of the problems in that office. This office needs a fresh start. This office needs someone who can both protect the public, as they said, and also restore the public trust and confidence in law enforcement. The alarming frequency, as the Supreme Court noted in their 2003 opinion, of prosecutorial misconduct is a problem in the criminal justice system. False confessions, wrongful convictions, perjurious expert testimony that has gone unchecked. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that it is time for a change. My career in public service involved 10 years at 26 in California as a Cook County public defender. I've been fighting for regular people my whole career, and that's what I bring to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. To close out the first round, Mr. Suffredin.
The status of my campaign is good. My campaign is about uniting a diverse countywide coalition, from Congressman Jackson, Gutierrez, and Schakowsky to the mayors of Olympia Fields, Midlothian, Skokie, and Evanston. My supporters share one common goal: to reform business as usual in the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. There are 6 candidates in this race, but voters really only have 2 choices. They can choose the status quo, prosecutors who are currently in office but do little to curb political corruption or police misconduct, and business-as-usual aldermen who are only concerned about making sure they can reward their supporters and friends with jobs. Or voters can vote to reform the office and bring about real change, get guns off the streets, make our communities safer, go after corruption instead of waiting around for news media to report it, restore public confidence in our justice system, and make sure that justice is the same in Englewood as it is in Wilmette. For 35 years, I fought for justice as a public defender fighting for the rights of the accused. As a board member of the Illinois Coalition Against Handgun Violence for 25 years, I fought to protect people from gun violence. As a county board member for the last 5 years, opposing waste and corruption in Cook County. Unlike my opponents, at this point in my life, I'm not looking for another rung on the political ladder or another 20 years on a public payroll. With your support, Cook County can have a state's attorney who will take on guns and corruption for a change.
Thank you very much. We now go to step 2, a modified step 2, because of the number of candidates. I'm just going to ask each candidate, and we'll start with number 2. Mr. Brewer, we'll start with you. All of you will have the same question. All of you will have 90 seconds to respond. Some of you have already covered some of this. We'll give you a chance to expand. My question is very simple. Given the number of candidates that are running, given the fact that none of you are the incumbent, and given the fact that when this started, some of you were not all that well known, the big question, I think, in many voters' minds is what separates you from your 5 opponents? In other words, why should you be singled out as the person who should get the support of Democratic primary voters on February 5th? Mr. Brewer, we will start with you. What separates you from your 5 opponents? And if possible, please be specific.
Yes, I think one of the things that separate me from my opponents is this: my diverse experience. I have law enforcement experience as a former special agent of the FBI. I have prosecutorial experience as a former supervisor of the gang prosecution unit of the state's attorney's office, as well as heading the civil rights division in Massachusetts and the Medicaid fraud control unit. And for the past 12 years, I've been a criminal defense attorney. It is the prosecutor who defines justice just within the criminal justice system, and certainly someone with my background would be able to define that, I think, in a way that we administer justice fairly and equitably. In addition to that, consider this. In 2003, when Governor Ryan declared the criminal justice system broken with all the wrongful convictions that were in the headlines, and Dick Devine was poised to run for his third time unopposed, of the thousands of lawyers in Cook County, only one, me, stood up and said, we need to change. And I articulated all the issues that they have learned and mimic now. And so they're not sincere. This is a passion for me. I've worked with every non-for-profit organization whose mission statement is to bring justice to a criminal justice challenge system, and they all know me. It's not what I'm going to do as state's attorney, it's what I've been doing all of my career. I'm serious about this. It's a passion. I've made personal and political professional sacrifices in order to do this. I was a special prosecutor in the John Burge investigation. I left that position to run for state's attorney because the things that happened 25 years ago are still happening today.
Thank you, Mr. Brewer. Thank you. Mr. Brookins, 90 seconds. What separates you from your 5 opponents?
First of all, my diverse experience and background. I've been an assistant state's attorney, an assistant public defender, a special assistant attorney general, an assistant appellate prosecutor. I've been practicing law for 20 years. I disagree with the premise about being well known because people like Joe Moore have made me famous. I have fought against Joe Moore. I've fought with Joe Moore on various and sundry issues that are of key importance to my community. Shameless plug, I'm also a licensed funeral director. I've been to too many funerals. I've been to too many funerals and seen the pain and agony and anguish in people's eyes when they've lost a loved one. As an alderman, I've been there with little people who've come to me with complex problems, with little or no resources, and we had to make a way out of no way. That is what makes me different as opposed to all of the other candidates here. I'm the only candidate that has been both an assistant state's attorney and also an elected official. I'm the only candidate who's, how did that happen? Who's prosecuted cases and also defended them in the office. I'm the only one who's been talking about these ideas. I'm the only one who's been speaking up and talking about truth, speaking truth to power, regardless, and not necessarily only in my political interest, but because it was right. Thank you.
Okay. By the way, for the record, a lot of people have become famous debating Joe Moore.
Absolutely.
So, Ms. Alvarez, you have 90 seconds. What separates you from your 5 opponents?
Despite being a 21-year prosecutor, I am not the status quo. The very fact that I sit here as a woman running for this race is change in and of itself, because there's never been a woman Cook County State's Attorney in an office that now is 54% women. I offer change in and of itself. I have been a career prosecutor holding the hands of victims of crimes, looking into the eyes of mothers who have lost their only son to gang violence. I have not been holding the hands of special interests. I have not been making money off of lobbying. The only lobbying I have ever done is on lobbying on behalf of the victims of Cook County. You know, it's fine. Politics is fine. If you want to be an alderman, if you want to be a Cook County commissioner, fine. But not for this office. This office may be an elected office, but it is not a political office, because there is a true danger in handing this office over to someone who will make charging decisions for political reasons. Because the power of the grand jury, the power to indict, the power to investigate is an awesome power. And we've seen how that can be abused by the Duke lacrosse case that we all saw last year. I have been fighting corruption before it became vogue for any of these guys up here to talk about it. I ran the Public Integrity Unit. I am the only person up here who has, in fact, went to court and personally prosecuted and convicted 3 Chicago police officers from the now infamous SOS unit. I've done it, so I know how to do it. And those kinds of challenges aren't really a challenge for me because I know how to do it. So I offer you professionalism, I offer you passion, I offer you the experience, 21 years of representing the victims of Cook County.
Mr. Allen, Alderman Allen, you have 90 seconds. What separates you from your 5 opponents?
I agree with our future President Barack Obama when he made the following statement, quote, "Real change isn't another 4 years of defending lobbyists who don't represent real Americans," close quote. I agree with that statement. And I also agree with the definition, and we should understand the definition of what a lobbyist is and as it relates to reform. Quote, to conduct activities aimed at influencing public officials, and especially members of the legislative body on legislation. We don't need any influence peddlers in the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. That separates me from Mr. Suffredin. When I get in my car as Cook County State's Attorney, I won't drive to Springfield. I'll drive to 26 in California. With respect to the current assistant state's attorneys, who are number 1 and 2 in this office, 1A, 1 and 1A, the status quo, as the Tribune refers to them, with all the special prosecution units, with 900 assistant state's attorneys, with hundreds of investigators, I would challenge either of them to tell me what they have ever done to bring this criminal justice system back in line as it relates to Burge and all the false confessions. They've prosecuted a lot of people. How about stepping up people of the state of Illinois versus John Burge?
Thank you. Mr. Suffredin.
Thank you. Well, when my opponents attack me for being a lobbyist, which is part of what I do as a practicing lawyer, they don't mention that as a lawyer representing companies before local and state governments, it is a requirement of the law to register, and I always do. What they also don't mention is that I've represented the Chicago Bar Association for 26 years. Ms. Alvarez is the second vice president of the Chicago Bar Association. Never complained about me in the time she's been on the board. Or that I represent the Donors Forum. Or that I represent the Art Institute, the Field Museum, the DeStavo Museum, the Mexican Fine Arts Museum. And that I have gotten millions and millions of dollars in working for those institutions. Or that I represent the Illinois Council Against Handgun Violence and have fought to defend individuals who are being injured and are the victims of gun violence to make sure we have safer and saner gun laws. There are 3 things that you need in your next state's attorney. You need someone who is independent. My record on the county board is one of standing up to the powers that be, powers in my own party, and showing independence. You need someone with experience. I don't apologize for being a successful lawyer or for having variety of experiences, having taught in law school, having done things. But more importantly than independence and experience, you need someone who can sit down and be fair and deliver justice to every neighborhood in this county.
Thank you. Mr. Milan, to close off round 2, what separates you from your 5 opponents?
Experience and leader as a prosecutor. You know, when a young lady came forward with information regarding the Brown's Chicken Massacre in Palatine, Illinois, I led that investigation. When we learned that a renegade band of police officers were out of control in the Special Operations Unit, I led that investigation. When serial killer Paul Runge raped and murdered 6 women and a little girl, I led the investigation and personally took his confessions. You know, these people up here talk about change. Suffredin, Allen, Alvarez, Brookins, all about change. All of them endorsed Dick Devine every single time he ran. Where were they talking about change then? Did they talk about change when we revamped juvenile justice in order to divert kids out of criminal courts and get them help? Did they talk about change when we diverted people with drug abuse out of criminal court and got them help? Or those that were mentally ill and we diverted them and got them help? When we created the Child Advocacy Unit, which is the top-notch unit looked up to across the country, or we revamped domestic violence and made it the pride of the country? When I took on wrongful convictions and false confessions, where were the rest of these guys talking about change? Ask yourself and ask them, what did they do in this system to change it? Where were they when I implemented mandatory videotaping of interrogations, or took on the 2-year-old felony cases and knocked them down to 1,500 to 700? Where were all these agents of change sitting up here talking about Dick Devine and me? They were nowhere. You know why? Because they really don't care.
For some of you newcomers, this is the City Club.
That's why they call me Smiling Bob Milan.
Let her rip. All right. We now go to round 3 of this bout, and let me tell you, the seconds are coming out for the wounds. All right. In round 3, we will have each candidate ask another candidate a question. That candidate will have 90 seconds to answer that question. And again, in the order in which we picked out, We'll start off with number 2, Mr. Brewer, asking a question of number 3, Mr. Brookins. So, Mr. Brewer, you have a question for your colleague, your fellow, your opponent in this primary, Mr. Brookins. What is your question to him, sir?
Well, it's a question that we've touched upon. Howard, in 2003, 14 men were released from death row, having been wrongfully convicted. You were aware in 2003 of the lack of minority staffing in the state's attorney's office. You're also aware of the police brutality and the abuse of police, abridgment of police of citizens' rights. Being a criminal defense attorney at 26th Street, and we touch bases all the time. My question is this: who did you support in the race of 2004 and why?
I supported Dick Devine because I thought he was the most qualified person in that race, and you specifically told me that you were not going to run for state's attorney. You told me that you were going to run for Cook County Sheriff. I told you I would support you for Cook County Sheriff, and 2 months later you said I'm running for Cook County State's Attorney. I supported Dick Devine because I thought he was the best qualified person who I knew was running at the time.
Good.
Okay, that's fine. He has your shot. Okay. Mr. Brookins, you have a question for Ms. Alvarez, 3 asking 4. Go ahead, sir.
Ms. Alvarez, I would just like to know, with respect to the minority hiring in that office, since you have been acutely involved in the hiring process, one, why was there a disproportionate number of minorities that were let go during the layoffs? And why has it just taken until there has been an election that there's been a significant focus on minority hiring for that office?
Ms. Alvarez.
Well, I disagree that it's just because before the election there's been a focus. There has always been a focus on minority hiring, and I've been involved in that. I have always been one that I spend my Saturdays going out to law schools and talking to the Latino law students, the black law students, trying to get law students interested in our office and bringing them over. I am very proud of the fact that since I attained the position of chief deputy, and I am involved in the 3rd round interviewing process of this office, that our minority numbers in the last 3 years after I took that over went from 26% to 37% to the last class that we just hired in November was 40% minority. And I'm very proud of the work that I've done. As a former president of the National Hispanic Prosecutors and I was a founding member of that organization, I have traveled across this country trying to recruit. But our problem isn't so much recruitment, it's retention. It's keeping people engaged in this office, not just minority ASAs, but young ASAs that leave after the 2- and 3-year level. So I'm very proud of what I've done. Do we need to do more? Absolutely. And I know, and you should know, Howard, too, and Tommy knows it as well, how many minorities are in law school today? It's a shameful number because it's very small. And so the pool that we have to choose from is smaller than the pool that, of Caucasians when they come to interview with us. But I would continue to do what we're doing. We had a minority job fair several months ago, which of course, again, I gave up a whole Saturday to sit there and interview people and try to recruit and get people interested in our office. So I would continue to do those things.
Thank you, Ms. Alvarez. Can we have a question from you for Alderman Allen?
Yes, Alderman Allen, during this campaign, you've talked a lot on the campaign trail about how tough you are and how you stand up for the average citizen, and you've mentioned that you stand up for the people in your ward. It's come to my attention that as a private attorney, you routinely appear before the Cook County Board of Review seeking and receiving tax reductions for large businesses and corporations in your ward. So my question is, first, how many big businesses have you been able to secure tax breaks for in your ward? And secondly, is it appropriate for an elected alderman to appear before a governmental taxing body, particularly one that is headed by the chairman of the Cook County Democratic Committee, seeking and receiving tax reductions for businesses in your own ward?
Well, I will say this, that in terms of me representing individuals, I have represented individuals before the Cook County Board of Review. And in terms of Mr. Barrios or any of his friends, believe me, did anybody support my candidacy at the Cook County Central Democratic Committee? There was no endorsement. So I feel that I have no conflict of interest whatsoever in that respect. And I have voted religiously against the property tax increases, largest property tax increase in Cook County, or excuse me, in the city of Chicago. On the last election cycle, I voted against, and I will continue to be frugal and take care of my citizens.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, number 5, you have a question for number 6, Mr. Suffredin.
Yes, I do. Mr. Suffredin has, you have continued to remind us how you are the agent of reform and you are the reform candidate, and also about your ability as a law school professor and how widespread your experience is. Let me ask you this, and it's come to my mind here that with the word reform and lobbyist, let me be the professor here. I'd like to have you use the word reform and lobbyist in the same sentence, and I'll give you the definition. And let me give you the definition to help you. The word reform under the dictionary says as follows, quote, a change for the better, close quote. And lobbyist, which I read to you earlier, but I'll read it again, to conduct activities aimed at influencing public officials, and especially members of a legislative body on legislation. Now,
I think we got the question.
Okay.
I think we got the question. No need to go on. Mr. Suffredin, you have 90 seconds to answer.
Well, the easiest thing to try to swift boat your opponent is to throw out things that don't make any sense. Look, I'm a lawyer. I don't apologize for being a successful lawyer. I don't apologize for having a lot of clients. And I don't apologize for following the lobbying laws of the state of Illinois. I don't apologize for going down and advocating before legislative bodies for individuals. The people I represent is the most diverse client base of any lawyer in this state. You know, I've represented labor unions in Springfield. I've represented individuals in Springfield. I've represented major organizations like the Chicago Bar Association. I've been involved in trying to get money for criminal justice and civil justice projects throughout this state. I've been involved in fighting to make sure that the victims of gun violence are protected by the laws of this state. I don't apologize for that. And my reform credentials are, as an elected official, you look at my 5 years on the county board, you see who has stood up to things. Mr. Allen likes to say, well, I once represented tobacco, but I also voted for the tobacco smoking ban in Cook County. I also voted and led the charge to have the highest tobacco taxes put on cigarette sales in Cook County and having that money go to our county hospital. I'm not afraid of who I've represented or how I've done it. I've been a good lawyer for 35 years, and it's my experience you should look at, and look at my record.
Thank you. 6S1, Mr. Suffredin, you have a question for Mr. Milan.
I told him I thought he was asking me a question, so it's in reverse.
You did that on purpose. Throw me off.
We can go through these
You
numbers
lobbyist.
again if you like.
As the first assistant, you have been the one who has overseen all of the offices and departments that are within the state's attorney's office. When it comes to looking at police misconduct and brutality, how do you explain the lack of investigation and prosecution of police shootings of unarmed civilians as reported in the Chicago Tribune last month?
90 seconds, Mr. Milan.
Sure. I directly have handled police shootings. Prior to being the first assistant and the chief deputy of the office, I used to run felony review. I'm the only person up here who's been out on police shootings, fatal police shootings, where officers were killed in the line of duty, and I've been out there and I've supervised those directly. The policy in our office on those cases, up until recently, has been if there's any evidence whatsoever that the police shooting was improper, unjustified, it would be reported immediately to me, and then I would conduct the investigation. And here's what I did this summer, though. In order to take the appearance of impropriety completely out of the game on police shootings, I suggested to Dana Starks, then the interim police superintendent, to form shoot teams. Excuse me, sir? To form shoot teams in which their sole job is to investigate police shootings. They do not report to the police department. They report to OPS, and then OPS reports to us. That way, any allegations of impropriety regarding police shootings are taken out of the game. I'm the only candidate to personally go out and handle these particular cases. And the one thing I want to point out is when police officers get up in the morning, the last thing they want to do is discharge their weapon. That's been my experience over 21 years. So we've handled the cases fairly, and my plan will work for the future.
Thank you. The last question on this on round three will be Mr. Milan asking a question of Mr. Brewer.
Tommy, it's been many, many years since you wore the hat of prosecutor or federal agent. Many, many years. How is it? What do you have to offer the victims of violent crime? What do you have to possibly offer them as the next state's attorney?
Mr. Brewer, you have 90 seconds, sir.
Well, it has been a while since I was a head of the gang prosecution unit, but I did prosecute cases, gang violent cases, as well as Medicaid fraud and civil rights violation by police officers in Massachusetts. But you forget right now, I've been a criminal defense attorney for the last 12 years. I interface with the Cook County state's attorneys, as you point out, the fine men and women and the very talented state's attorneys, so you know my job is a very difficult one in representing my clients. So I am still involved in the criminal justice system day to day, just like Mr. Milan and Ms. Alvarez. So I know the problems, I know what needs to be changed, I know the best of that system and the worst of that system.
Okay, we now go to round 4, normally the most nervous round for the moderator. We have city club members can line up behind, as I suspected, Ms. Posner, and ask a question. Ed Mazer, Sergeant of Arms, will be there in case you go on too long. That's known as the Berkowitz factor. So what I would like for you to do, the only rule that because I want to be fair, and sometimes this gets confusing with 6 candidates, it may get very confusing. I want everybody to have an equal chance of answering a question and responding to a question. So the deal is this: you will ask a question to a specific candidate, and then each of the other candidates will have 60 seconds to respond if they wish. Ms. Posner, you're first.
My question is to Ms. Alvarez. You said that the state's attorney should not be a politician, but it is an elected office, so it is important for the Cook County state's attorney to be a politician and to know how to work with other politicians. Mr. Suffredin is the only Cook County elected official who has a relationship with all the other Cook County officials when it comes to...
What's your question? And your question is?
How has your experience as a prosecutor help you to be a politician? Because you need to be a politician in this position because it's an elected official.
Well, you know, a politician, a career politician like Mr. Suffredin, and, you know, he wasn't truthful about all the other clients he has.
I'm a smoker, so I was
Ms. Posner, have a seat, Ms. Posner. Thank you very much.
Because he has also represented casinos and gaming, and I think that poses a severe conflict of interest.
Kathy, please. Excuse me.
Especially when
Ms. Alvarez, hold it. Kathy, just get away from the microphone. Thank you.
When casinos are coming into Cook County. Yes, you do have to. I am learning this political thing relatively quickly, and I think I'm doing a good job. But the fact that this office needs to be run by a professional, and the most important thing is to have somebody at the top with judgment, and someone at the top who's going to make decisions based on the evidence and based on the facts, and not because he owes somebody something or because he's got the hands in the pocket of some special interest. That's what's important. So I disagree with you that you have to be a true politician. And I just want to note that across the nation, the DAs, these state's attorneys, I could start naming Los Angeles, Manhattan, Miami. They are career people like myself. They are not career politicians like Mr. Suffredin.
Thank you, Ms. Alvarez. Now, Mr. Allen, you have 60 seconds. Timekeepers, 60 seconds to respond to the question of, is it good to be a politician, to be state's attorney?
Well, my barometer on this is pretty much what I said in my opening remarks. This system is in dire need of resuscitation. There is a crisis on the streets with the citizens. There's a crisis with the police department. There is a crisis in the state's attorney's office. And I've seen it as I've campaigned around Cook County. I knew and sensed it was out there before I started this campaign, but it has reinforced that fact in my mind. And you need to look at that and make a decision based on who can provide some change. Because look at just recently the two assistant state attorneys squabbling over each other as to who reduced the misdemeanor charge for the guy getting beat in a wheelchair. I mean, you know, they can't get that straight. There's a real lack of leadership in this office.
Mr. Suffredin, 60 seconds to respond to the question about politics in this office.
Career prosecutors are allowed the Burge cases to go on. Career prosecutors have put innocent people in the penitentiary. Career prosecutors have lost the faith of the people in this office. I think that what we need in this office is someone who has a balanced approach, who is going to be able to appeal to Springfield and to Washington to get resources, grants, and other monies to make this office function better, is going to have to be able to work with the county board president to figure out how we can, in cooperation with the chief judge, the sheriff's office and the clerk of the circuit court do what's necessary to improve the quality of justice in this community. I find it funny that I'm a career politician. I've only been in office 5 years. I've been a lawyer 35 years. I don't think a career politician is a guy who gets a part-time job for the last 5 years and devotes a lot of energy to it and has done it right.
Thank you. Mr. Milan. 60 seconds to respond to the question.
Sure. Larry said the public has lost faith in the office. Tom's called it a shambles. Neither one of them ever told Dick Devine that. Neither one of them ever called me up, see him all the time, never called me up and said, Bob, the office is in shambles. Everybody's lost faith. They never said it until they came here to ask for your vote. And if somebody will say anything and do anything to get your vote, they haven't earned it. The power of this office is awesome. It includes the power to indict and to wiretap and subpoena people. That type of power should never go in the hands of career politicians. Ma'am, who asked the question, never. Could you imagine these three guys, these politicians up here, handling the Brown's Chicken Massacre, or the Paul Runge case, or the SOS case? The learning curve would be gigantic. It would be the blind leading the blind. They aren't equipped to handle that. The job is just too important. Don't give it to a career politician.
Mr. Brewer, you have 60 seconds, sir.
Well, I think here in Cook County, we mentioned politician that conjure up something negative, but that has not always been the case, nor is it the case in other places. When you think of a politician, you should think of someone who's persuasive, who's able to inspire people, who's a skilled negotiator, and who can compromise without compromising principles. And I think all those things would serve me well as the next state's attorney, being the head of that office. So I'm not certain. I do believe that it is extremely important at this time, at this juncture in history, that the next state's attorney be politically independent. And I am politically independent. I've never held elective office. I'm not affiliated with the Democratic Central Committee because I think that's very necessary at this juncture given the past history of the office.
Thank you. And last on this round, Mr. Brookins, same question.
Thank you. Well, Bob, you've been my friend, and you are a great prosecutor. And
Got your vote, huh?
As your next state's attorney, you will prosecute those cases because you are good at what you do. There's not a dirty word. There's nothing wrong with being a politician and a public servant. I see many people around here that have devoted their lives to public service. I see Phil Rock when I was in college and I would drive up to Springfield, out there making a difference for the people in this community. I see Don Clark Nash, who did the same thing. I also see Art Berman and many of you, but more importantly, my superhero, my role model, my father, who put his life on the line, who went out there to advocate for a positive change for the people in the communities in which he represented, who put forth legislation to make Cook County sub-circuit so that there could be minority judges represented throughout this county, including Republicans, Tony. So it's nothing wrong with being a politician. It's a problem playing games with this office.
Okay. Briefly, Mr. Bauer, who was your question directed to?
Thank you. I think I'm going to direct it to Mr. Brewer, but it's really a generic question.
Okay, we're going to Mr. Brewer.
Okay, to Mr. Brewer. I think for each of you, this is probably the most expensive campaign you've ever run. As a result, at this point, what do you think of the way we finance campaigns in the state of Illinois? And if you think any changes need to be made to the system, how would you change the way we finance campaigns?
And Mr. Brewer, you're going to go first, and because I'm a tricky SOB, we will respond in reverse order. Go ahead, Mr. Brewer.
Well, I think there needs to be public funding for campaigns. I don't think people like myself who are well qualified and independent have a serious chance or to win because of lack of funding. And oftentimes in politics throughout the nation, that becomes an issue. And I think it's a situation where we want to encourage diverse participation in the system, and anything that would afford that or help that, I'm in favor of. As far as specifically, there's different ways it can be done, of course, but certainly I'm in favor of changing it so funds are available for those of us who are not independently wealthy.
60 seconds, Mr. Milan. What is your response to the question about campaign financing?
I agree with Tommy. It should be publicly funded. Every candidate should be given the same, and you go out there and you run for the office. The worst part about this job, having never run for not even student council president or anything in my life, worst thing in the world is getting on the phone and calling for money. Ask anybody. I got an F in it. I've been hung up on so many times, and it's humiliating. It's ridiculous. Take that money, all this extra money, and give it to charities like juvenile diabetes. If anybody wants to give, that's my favorite charity. But I agree with Tommy. It's ridiculous. Keep everybody on the same level playing field. Give everybody the same amount of money. We'll end up saving more money by doing this. We get our message out. May the best person win. That's how I think it should work.
Mr. Suffredin.
Clearly, we need to figure out a better way to have everybody have an opportunity to communicate. It is very difficult in this political environment with President Obama, Senator Obama, about to be President Obama, taking all of the political oxygen and not leaving much for those of us who are lower on the ticket. I feel for the judicial candidates, they're all out trying to figure out how do you get your message out there. I think that we need to come up with a fairer way to fund these campaigns. We need to figure out a fairer way to have open access on television and radio so that we can reach the voters. We are going to have over 700,000 people vote in this primary. That's more than most of the general election vote totals in over 20 of the states that are states of the Union. So we need to do something to change this.
Mr. Allen, 60 seconds.
Well, everybody here has been asked this question or a variation of it in our 20 or some forums that we've had, and everybody agrees that this is a very ridiculous portion of our campaigning. But we've been talking about it as long as I've been alive, and different variations of it in Congress and Springfield. There's no doubt something needs to be done. And nobody up here likes this dirty deed of raising money. So I agree with.
I hope whoever gets nominated and if you get elected, you do something about moving furniture at Maggiano's. This will be taken care of very quickly once this is over. Ms. Alvarez, you have 60 seconds.
Raising the money obviously is the most difficult, and it is certainly the most difficult for people like Bob and I who have never run before, so we don't have those political connections. And if you look at Mr. Suffredin's D2s and see all the money that's been pumped into his campaign after the 1st of January and the political contributors that he has. So yes, it's a disservice because I think the people of Cook County are cheated because the best person, the most qualified person necessarily doesn't have the funds to get their message out there and to reach to the people that they really need to get that message out to. I've been fortunate to work this from a grassroots level, and I've been able to compete now with my commercials on TV, but it's a personal sacrifice. I think it should be either publicly funded or there should be limits because there's some of us up here who certainly are at a disadvantage from the politicians in this race.
Mr. Brookins, to close out this question.
Thank you. I think there needs to be some hybrid. I'm not sure that I would be willing to put the taxpayers' dime on the line for publicly funding everybody's campaign, anybody who would just jump up and say that they would want to run for office, and we would have to pay for each and every one of those people. I do believe, though, that they should have access to the media, that there are public airways, that people should have some reasonable opportunity to get their message across on the public airways, both radio and TV. But I don't necessarily believe that we should pay our dime for each and every Tom, Dick, and Harry, the 13 opponents or so that may want to run for alderman or any of the other elected officials throughout all of Cook County. Nobody would want to pay for that.
Thank you. State your name, sir.
Edward Cooper, to Miss Alvarez, but I'd like an answer from all of these people.
But who are you directing your question to?
Miss Alvarez.
No, she has had a question, sir. I thought the rules were clear. Try it again. You have
Okay,
four
Mr.
multiple
Suffredin.
choice to Tamara.
Suffredin.
Mr. Suffredin, yes.
Suffredin. Several of you have talked about fighting corruption. How would you hold the feet of the fire of the county board, given the fact you receive your funding from them? And also a proxy question, would you favor a cap on spending?
Mr. Suffredin, you have 90 seconds to answer that question.
The state's attorney, once that you're in office, is the people's lawyer, and there's nobody who's a sacred cow that is going to have a special privilege. When you look at the budget of the county, this office gets a certain amount of money from the general revenue of the county, and then it gets a lot of money from a variety of grants and other sources. I think that we can expand the amount of money that can come from some of these other sources. We can actually free this office from some of its dependence on the county board and on general revenue funds. By going after and expanding the civil side and going after polluters and others who we can collect fees from, we actually got pay raises for assistant state's attorneys this last year by using a bankruptcy settlement and an insurance settlement that the civil office worked on. We need to go and get more grants for domestic violence and for juvenile justice, and we also need to have the judges collect more of the fees and fines that are imposed to help the court system.
Mr. Milan, you have 60 seconds to respond.
Before my time starts, sir, when you say cap on funding, what do you mean? Cap on funding for what?
Spending.
Cap on spending? From our office?
Anybody.
Yeah,
Okay, let him answer so we have...
Thanks.
let's
All right,
be
in
fair.
regards to public corruption, although many of the opponents accuse the office of turning a blind eye to public corruption, I just want to note that we're the only office I know of in the country that went into a police department, the Harvey Police Department, took all their murder files, took their rape kits, and worked them up ourselves. We led the investigation in the special operations officers that were out of control, committing armed robberies and home invasions. Recently, we indicted a woman named Mahajan from the county who was ripping off the county, and Shirley Glover, who was ripping off Poet. And we indicted school superintendents recently, including Tom Ryan. In regards to a cap on spending, we're given a budget, and we can't go over that budget. We never have. Since I've been the first assistant or chief deputy, we have never gone over our budget, and by law, we're not allowed to. Thank you.
Mr. Brewer.
I certainly have been long advocating that the state's attorney's office should do more about vendor fraud particularly. We have not done much in that regard. If you look at the Duffy case, I think that was a prime case that should have been prosecuted by the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. We have to be more vigilant and do more in that area. The excuse given is that there has not been enough resources to do so. I disagree. Even if you have to set other priorities with regard to low-level drug cases, I think public corruption costs taxpayers millions of dollars, and it certainly should take precedent over low-level drug cases.
Mr. Brookins.
The only thing that is stopping the Cook County State's Attorney's Office now from prosecuting public corruption is the will and the desire to do so. This is the largest law firm in the state of Illinois by far. They have not more than 900 attorneys, more attorneys than Lisa Madigan, the Attorney General, more attorneys than the United States Attorney's Office, more law enforcement to follow up any of those investigations than any of those particular agents, with more than 13,500 Chicago police officers and more than an equal number of other local officials out there. The county board cannot stop the Cook County State's Attorney's Office from investigating and following up. The Constitution of the state of Illinois mandates that this office must be funded and funded adequately. They cannot stop that. We could go to court, we could sue them, and they would have to come up with the money.
Ms. Alvarez, same question.
Well, the first thing I would do is win this election and make sure Larry Suffredin stays on the county board so he can help me find the funds that I need to run all the programs in my office. It's a proven fact that we can't count on the county board every year to get the money that we need to run the programs that we deserve, that the victims of Cook County deserve. I think we do need to be a little more aggressive in our seeking of grant funds. I think there are federal monies out there that we have not sought that would assist us in helping run some of these programs. Every year we're fighting to keep drug school alive, and that's a diversion program that I believe in, a diversion program that should be expanded. But every year we have to fight with the members of the county board to get the money to keep that program available. So those are some of the things that I would do. As far as corruption, again, you know, we have fought corruption. We will continue to fight corruption. We need to be a little more proactive in that regard. I see that, and I think that's something that I would change. But I think that as far as the budget is concerned, although they tell us they control the budget, they can't control our policies, and I would do the best job in implementing those policies.
To close out the round, Mr. Allen.
You know, the word corruption kind of strikes me as just a fancy name for thievery, extortion, bribery. But somehow when we use it in a setting of political or government or vendors, we call it corruption. In my judgment, this office needs to do more. There's no reason that they're not going after people who commit those types of crimes and we label it corruption in the same fierce manner that they're going after people who commit those crimes on the street. So that to me would be a top priority, and In terms of the funding, I have a little different view here. I think government, I've been in government a little bit, and they always cry poor, all right? When I became chairman of the Transportation Committee, I cut 40%, I cut my budget. I've turned back money in my committee every year. So it can be done. 258 cars, I think we can do it less than that in the Cook County State's Attorney's Office.
Thank you. Question, you have three choices, Mr. Milan, Mr. Brookins, or Mr. Allen.
Mr. Milan, my name is Edna Epstein. I'm a lawyer. I got my start under Bernard Carey in the State's Attorney's Office 35 years ago. For Mr. Milan first and then the others, what is one thing you feel needs to be changed in the office, and what is one thing that you think is very good that needs to be continued and expanded?
90 seconds, Mr. Milan.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple things. The top things I would do is I would expand our street corner conspiracy program to attack the homicide rate. Currently, in Cook County, the homicide rate overall is 500 a year. It's plummeted. It's gone down. It's still far too high. If we expanded the street corner conspiracy program, tripled it, that's our unit that goes up on these open-air drug markets in the gang-ravaged areas. We watch them for 6 weeks, 8 weeks at a time, and then we sweep them off the streets. It saves a lot of lives because we get gangbangers, guns, and dope off the streets. I would take that out in the suburbs. And the other thing I would improve on is I'd have summits every single month in the most crime-ravaged areas of the city, which would include clergy, police, prosecutors, political activists, community activists, to talk about crime in the area and receive information and share information, but just as importantly, bridge this gap of distrust which exists between the minority community and our office and law enforcement. And finally, I would just keep hiring these very talented, wonderful people we have. I take a lot of bows, and Dick takes a lot of bows, but the fact of the matter is these 1,600 people that work for us, many who are in this room, make us look real good every day, and I would just keep hiring people just like
Thank
them.
you, Mr. Milan.
Thank you, but you didn't tell me what you changed, if anything.
You asked your question.
All right.
If they didn't answer it, that's their thing. You've asked yours. Mr. Brewer, respond to the question.
Yes, the number one change is, of course, the top position, state's attorney. You need a change in that area, of course, and that's where I would start. Everything begins there, but seriously, one of the things I would change is the way the staffing of the office. It's pitiful, the lack of minorities, and it's just not just hiring minority lawyers. It's the state's attorney has to lead by example, and if we're going to bridge the credibility gap in the criminal justice system, we have to start with the state's attorney's office. There's no excuse for the lack of minority staffing in that particular office. The thing that the office does well, I think they do an extremely good job in sex offense cases. They do an extremely good job. They have very talented and dedicated people in that area, and going up against them on a regular basis in that area, I think that they're to be complimented on that.
Mr. Brookins, 60 seconds.
Certainly, first, the thing that we need to change is we need to bridge the digital divide with respect to this particular office. They're still doing things the old-fashioned way: pen and paper, 3x5 index cards, hardbound leather diaries to keep dates. Most private attorneys have long abandoned that way of the practice of law. There are some very good people and personnel within that office. Bob is a friend of mine and is a very good prosecutor. Brian Sexton, who may be judged very soon, is a very good prosecutor. Shauna Boliker is a very good prosecutor. Z. Williams and others in that office are very good personnel, and we would keep and build on those great people who do a great job with respect to the office.
Thank you. Ms. Alvarez.
One of the things I would make a priority is to bring back our community prosecutions units, because we had to, again, close those because of budget concerns. But it's really important, I think, that we have them, because I think what we need to do as an office is a better job of listening to the needs of the community. We need to be better listeners. We need to be in the community. And I think having a face to the name, so to speak, in these community offices that we had across the county was very important. And now that they're missing, we hear the complaints. We hear more complaints from community groups and community liaisons about the lack of presence in the neighborhood. And interestingly enough, on the campaign trail, I'm finding people who still don't quite understand what we do. And I think that's sad, because I think the public needs to know that we are there for them if they are victims of crime. So I would change that. I would bring that back. And I have other ideas too in the office. I would like to change the rotation of the assistants, the way they come up through the office, because I think we need to reach out. We need to have a mentoring program, and I believe that we need to offer an atmosphere of inclusion that sometimes isn't there in our office.
Thank
And
you,
I
thank
think
you,
I
Ms.
offer
Alvarez.
that.
Thank you, thank you. You're over your time. Mr. Allen.
The single most important change would be to bring one single individual to justice who is responsible for any one of these scores of wrongful convictions. Just one. Just one. And believe me, you won't need to have all those community prosecution officers in the neighborhood, because you will restore the faith of the citizens in this prosecutorial office. You will restore the faith. My client, 17 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. False testimony by a police expert, Pam Fish, done it a half a dozen times. My guy got out. I sat on the city council, ironically, to approve a settlement for that man. Pam Fish never was brought to justice. And that's the single most important thing that this office needs, and they don't have the courage to do it, and I don't know who they're protecting.
Mr. Suffredin, to close out this round.
The questioner, Edna Epstein, set up one of the first in the nation programs to protect victims of sexual assault in Branch 66, and I remember it well. What we've got to do on the first day in office, I've got to come in with a team, and I've got to recruit through lateral transfers lawyers of color who have been out 5, 10, 15 years, and we have to bring our whole team into the office to work with the existing assistants. We've got to work on training. We've got to set clear policies. And then what we're going to have to do is, after we've stabilized the office and gotten it the resources that it needs to be able to do what's necessary in the office, we've got to get it into the community. I don't think you want community prosecution offices. You want community advocacy offices. You want the people to be able to feel free to come in and tell you what are the problems in your community. Is it guns, gangs, and drugs? We go after it. If it's environmental, we go after it. If it's mortgage or payday loan predators, we go after them. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Epstein. We're running out of time, so make the question short, please. You have a choice of Mr. Brookins or Mr. Allen to direct your question.
I will address this to Mr. Brookins. Mr. Brookins, my name is Bill Kushner. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Berwyn. With me are chiefs from Linwood and from Bartlett, Illinois. We represent law enforcement throughout Cook County. There exists a disparity in the Cook County State's Attorney's Office in regards to felony review and felony review override. The City of Chicago stands as its own entity, and the suburbs are left with the crumbs. How are you going to address this disparity?
90 seconds.
One, we need to change the system in the suburban counties. As I spoke with Mayor Dominic and Cicero, where they have murders that the police chiefs have solved, and they can't get them prosecuted because they are told that there has to be 3 eyewitnesses and you only have 2. That is a problem. I'm going to change the focus of this office, not based on a win and loss record, but based on doing what is right and what's just for all of the people in Cook County. That's how we change that.
Let's go back in reverse order. Mr. Brewer.
I'm not sure I understood your question in terms of the difference between Chicago PD and the suburbs. You said that you're left with the crumbs. I don't.
Chicago Police Department has a policy or a procedure that was worked out with felony review over 40 years ago, that if a state's attorney rejects a felony charge, the on-duty assistant deputy superintendent can be called, apprised of the facts of the case, and they make a decision whether or not to concur with the felony rejection or to override the assistant state's attorney and put the case in the system. Right. Suburban agencies, and there's over 155 agencies in suburban Cook County, do not have that.
Okay, I think that's pretty clear.
That's very clear. Well, I was in felony review several years ago, and I never agreed with that policy in the first place. I don't think that the superintendent of police should be able to override felony review. I think what should happen, if you want a review of that decision of that assistant, because sometimes back in the day, assistants had less experience than they do now. Normally have a tendency to put trial assistants in felony review. But I don't think that the superintendent of police should ever independently have the ability to override the decision of a felony review assistant.
Mr. Milan.
I know the issue well, Bill, because as you know, I'm the only person up here who came out and visited the police chiefs regarding this issue that you're so concerned about. And I'll tell you now what I've told you then. Felony overrides don't work. It's not good for the Suburban Police Department. You put yourself in a position where you may charge the wrong person, all right? You need to go through felony review and let us make the decisions. But more importantly, Bill, this is important. When I left those meetings, what did I tell you? If you had any case whatsoever that you were concerned about, that you didn't think you were being treated fairly for. I said, call my number, 312-603-1824. It's been a year, Bill. My phone's never rang. The system works the way it is. You're lucky to have it the way it is. It protects you. It protects the accused. It protects our office and your office. It's the good system. And by the way, of all those police chiefs you talked about, overwhelmingly, they disagree with you, Bill.
Mr. Suffredin.
Well, Chief, I think you point out even a bigger problem, and that is that the suburban areas do not get the same resources that the city of Chicago does in a lot of areas, and especially in the way that the office interacts on the felony review side. What I've said is we need to reorganize felony review, we need to give clearer policies, we have to reestablish the role of the state's attorney and the role of the police in these situations. And I think if there's proper dialogue, the chiefs would be happy. I mean, right now, what your frustration is, you have officers who put their lives on the line to develop a case, put it together, and then feel that no one listens to what the hard work they've done. We'll change that, but I'm not sure you'll always be happy with the result, but I think the important thing is suburban areas will get as many resources as Chicago areas if I'm the state's attorney.
Mr. Allen.
Well, first of all, I think, I commend you for coming up here and asking the question, and I don't know that Mr. Milan should judge what all the other people have in their mind, because obviously you have some concerns on this, and I've heard it too. I believe that there needs to be a revision and a sit-down so that there is what you're saying is there's a double standard here, that the Chicago Police Department has the ability to do overrides, and you guys don't.
That's correct.
They're treating you like a stepchild. Well, I believe that there should be uniformity. Cook County is Cook County, not just Chicago. And you suburban officers and chiefs have the same or tougher problems that the city has, and I would certainly sit down and take a look at it.
Thank you. And to close out this round, Ms. Alvarez.
Okay. You know, felony review is always a tough position to be in, having all of us having gone, well, not all of us, Bob, myself, and Tommy, gone through felony review. We understand it. And, you know, a deputy override, I agree, is not a good thing. And just because Chicago has the ability to do it doesn't mean that those cases ever even get prosecuted. Many times those cases are thrown out at the preliminary hearing level. There's a reason why we rejected it in the first place, and just because Chicago went ahead and overruled it didn't make it a better case. What's important here is that everybody looks at the facts of the case. And police officers and state's attorneys disagree, but we have a high burden. And, you know, we have a moral and an ethical duty to not charge if we cannot reach that burden. And that's the important thing here. And I disagree with Mr. Suffredin, and he has no knowledge of this. The suburbs aren't ignored or treated differently. We're talking about municipalities who have very small police departments that don't compare to Chicago. They don't see the crime that Chicago has, and that's just reality. And there's many suburban police departments that don't have the ability to work up a case as the major crimes detectives in Chicago do. But again,
Thank you, Ms. Alvarez. We're running short of time. Thank you, Chief. So we have one question. Your question will be to Mr. Allen, because he hasn't had the first answer. So go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank you all for being here. I'd like to thank the City Club, too, for having this.
State your name, sir.
My name is Azim Ramales. I work for the City of Chicago. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm doing this question for myself, not for the city. I like my job. Seriously, though. The arrest rates in certain neighborhoods for African-American kids, 73%. For Hispanic, it's 19. For white kids, it's 7. For certain neighborhoods in the city of Chicago. Juvenile Justice Court started in the city of Chicago 100 years ago. My question is I care about kids. And if juvenile detention is the gateway to incarceration, because once you end up in juvenile detention, you're 38% more likely to end up in prison, 38% more likely to commit a felony, and 38% more likely to end up in the juvenile justice system. So my question is, what will you do to revamp the juvenile justice system in a way that's restorative and not punitive, and also keep kids outside of the system, and also stop the number of minority youths entering the system? Thank you very much.
Mr. Allen, you have 90 seconds to answer that question, sir.
Thank you. I was at the ceasefire breakfast this morning, and those types of agencies are working, doing wonderful work on the streets as it relates to keeping kids and people out of harm's way. It is a very difficult societal problem, but one thing I think that needs to be looked at is sometimes with the ratcheting up of the criminal code in the last 20 years in Springfield that many cases are being prosecuted as adults, where sometimes I think we should rethink that and try to save these kids before they get into the system.
Mr. Suffredin.
Well, I've been an advocate for Representative Anisette Collins' bill that changes the juvenile jurisdictional age from the 17th birthday to the 18th birthday. I really believe that many children get into difficult times in that time frame, and if they're adults, they're going to get a felony conviction, which is going to spiral their life out of control for the rest of it. I think that what we've got to do, this is one of the areas where suburban areas seem to have some more resources, that juveniles are treated differently. We've got to make sure that children, wherever they are in Cook County, get the same treatment, so that a child who does the same thing in one place or the other is given the same opportunities, the same programs to improve themselves, the same educational opportunities. And I think that the only way to do that is to revamp the entire system to make sure all of our juvenile justice programs are everywhere. Thank you.
Mr. Milan.
It's a great question. Dick Devine and Sister Kathy Ryan completely revamped the juvenile justice system with the goal to take juveniles out of criminal court and divert them to counseling and get them treatment. You know that presently, out of all the cases that get charged, when a juvenile gets arrested, only 1/3 stay in court. 66% of them are diverted out. And where were all these agents of change when Dick Devine and Sister Kathy Ryan did that? Where were they when they decided to do that, to help children? They were nowhere to be found. In regards to one other thing I would do is increase detention alternatives for juveniles, like a halfway house, in order to take care of them. And the last thing is this disproportionate minority contact with police. I agree with you, sir, and that's why I conduct these summits, because the next state's attorney alone can't solve that problem. It's going to take clergy, community activists, police, prosecutors, teachers, and school superintendents in order to protect these kids and get them out of the criminal justice system.
Mr. Brewer.
Well, I don't look at it as completely a juvenile justice system. I think there should be child intervention long before kids get to the age of 10 and 11, the ages that they're normally showing obvious antisocial behaviors, because we know, depending upon what area, what neighborhood, some homes you come from, that you have certain psychological traumas and socialization issues that have to be addressed as early as Head Start, as far as I'm concerned. Because once you've gotten the criminal justice system, then you're in the justice system, and I think it's something that should be dealt in our school system, in our educational
Mr.
system.
Brookins.
Oh, thank you. First of all, I'm an advocate for a new juvenile justice code that specifically relates only to juveniles. Currently, everything in the regular criminal code is imported for juveniles. Some things absolutely make no sense to be charging juveniles with, for example, specific to be charging juveniles with statutory rape-type crimes when two juveniles, for example, are in consensual sexual situations. They can choose whether to charge the boy or the girl. So we need a specific code that relates to what juveniles relate to. One, we need to make sure that each and every one of the police stations and districts are keeping records as to station adjustments so that all of the kids are treated equally and fairly. And then thirdly, I will get people like Judge Studley, who does a great job in Markham, to help work on a new system and procedures. Thank you.
Ms. Alvarez.
The Juvenile Court Act was rewritten several years ago under direction of Kathy Ryan, who was then the bureau chief of the Juvenile Justice Bureau. And we have successfully, under the concept of balanced and restorative justice, reduced the number of cases going into juvenile court from 22,000 to 8,000. And that is because the focus is on getting these children into diversion programs and getting them into programs that will help them at that level. We need to continue that. That will not change because those programs are effective. Because we need to get to those kids. We don't want them at 26th in California. So we need to make sure all of those resources are available. There are probably more diversion programs that we can implement at the juvenile justice level. But what we've done so far is working, and it has to continue. So I wouldn't change that concept, the balance of restorative justice, which is recognized nationwide as a good way to deal with the juvenile. But I think we need to do more on the adult side as well. We need to do more diversion programs on the adult side, particularly for drugs and mental health, because that's another area that is probably lacking.
Thank you, Ms. Alvarez. Well, as the former state's attorney Edgar Allan Poe once said, art is long and time is fleeting, and though our hearts be stout and brave. We have two people waiting for Mike. Thought I'd throw that in just for those of you living along the lakefront. Little insight. Yeah, I think we're just going to have to say we're sorry. We just can't go on. And Jeff Berkowitz, you had your chance this morning. Why don't we have our closing comments? They have places to go. You know, they're running for election. So thank you all. We're so sorry, but let's have our closing comments, 90 seconds. Why I am the best candidate for the Democratic Party for Cook County State's Attorney. And by the way, Mr. Pareka has left the room. So we will do this in reverse order. Mr. Suffredin, 90 seconds to close.
Thank you. 32 Chicago public school children died last year due to gun violence. This is a tragedy. I'm the only candidate for state's attorney with a proven record of fighting gun violence and a plan to reduce gun deaths. That's why the National Rifle Association is opposed to my candidacy. I will take on guns and gangs and will make our communities safer. I'll prosecute public corruption and police misconduct in every community in Cook County. I will aggressively recruit talented African American, Hispanic, and Asian attorneys so the office reflects the community it represents. And I will do all this with transparency and community cooperation so Cook County residents can finally have faith in this office again. The status quo is not good enough. And quite frankly, being a career prosecutor isn't good enough. The people of Cook County need an independent state's attorney who can bring real change. I'm an outside voice who can bring new ideas to the office. I have a proven record of fighting corruption and waste. I have 35 years of experience fighting for justice. I'm the best candidate for this job because I've demonstrated independence as a Cook County board member, opposing waste in Cook County and patronage in our county health system. With your support on February 5th, we can put an end to business as usual in the state's attorney's office and start taking on guns and corruption for a change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suffolk. Mr. Allen, you have 90 seconds to why you would be the best Democratic candidate for state's attorney.
I will repeat my earlier comment that this system is in bad shape. And I truly and honestly believe that. I've been in the system. I know what the system is. And I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. As far as my candidacy, I've never been a fancy talker, and I don't use big words, and I don't have a big resume. I haven't argued before the Supreme Court. I haven't, got 175 jury trials. I don't count them. I just get up every day and do my job. I represent 60,000 people. That's my jury. And every day when I get up, I go to work for those 60,000 people that I represent, and you can call it a politician. I call it an honor. And I call it a trust, a public trust. And for 4 consecutive elections, those people have told me they like the work I do, and they send me back. I fight for public safety issues in the city council, and that's what I do. I've had people try to kill me because I'm so aggressive, and that's a little measly alderman without 900 attorneys and 250 investigators. All I had was me and a couple of guys in my van. That was it, okay? So what you see is what you get, and reform is a word, okay? My life and my public service is what I do and not what I say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Ms. Alvarez, you have 90 seconds on the same question.
I'm the best candidate for this race because I have the most qualifications to run this office, and I have the passion and the desire to continue to be the voice of the victims of Cook County. It's been an honor to serve them for 21 years as a public servant, not as a politician or a lobbyist, but as a true public servant, and I want to continue to do that. I have tried every case imaginable, from domestic violence, sexual assault, to gang homicides, so I know that what the violence is out there, and I know how to handle it. I have held the hands of victims, and I want to continue to do so. The fact that I am running for Cook County State's Attorney is change in and of itself, because I recognize the problems in this office. I recognize that change needs to be made, and I'm the one to offer it. I'm not the status quo candidate, and I think that was official by Mr. Devine endorsing Bob Milan. I am not the status quo candidate, and I think they're afraid of change. And I have the experience of running this office. I have the insider knowledge. I have the true experience of being a true trial lawyer, and I offer that to the victims and all the voters of Cook County. I would be the best choice to be the next Cook County State's Attorney. Thank you.
Mr. Brookins, same question.
This office is about vision. It's not about how many cases you try, what your win and loss record is. It's about whether or not you have the tenacity and the temerity to stand up, speak truth to power, that you have the vision and track record that you can do things that are not within your own political expediency, but what is right for the people of Cook County. Each and every one of the lawyers here on this panel, each and every one of us have more experience in trying cases than Mayor Daley did when he was the Cook County State's Attorney. This office is not about that. It is about vision. Do you have the right stuff to stand up and prosecute rogue cops when people are saying you're being soft on crime or you may not get the endorsement of the FOP? People said when I was the alderman of the 21st Ward, when I ran against the machine and I won, can one alderman make a difference? I've transformed the tapestry of the 21st Ward in the city of Chicago. Just one alderman in 4 short years have brought first to the 21st Ward with the first Best Buy, with the first Lowe's Home Improvement, with other improvements that have gone on in the ward. I've been outspoken and spoke truth to power for things that people in my own party, people in my own church have warned me to shut up and sit down because it may hurt you with respect to re-election. That's what this office is about. What you're electing someone is to have that vision and that you can feel confident that they will do what's right.
Thank you. Mr. Brewer.
The problems with the criminal justice system are deep and long-standing. They're not new. And for over 20 years, I've been an advocate for change, trying to make the system better in terms of administering justice. I work for nonprofit organization in order to accomplish this. I got an idea one day that said with my intellect, maturity, and experience, I need to be an elected official, be a CEO in the criminal justice system. And I have not been successful, not because I didn't have the intellectual capacity or the experience or the compassion to do the job. I just didn't have the monetary requirements in order to get elected. But I do care, and for a long time, and I do this every day, day in and day out. Now, everyone up here, and I exclude Ms. Alvarez and Mr. Milan for obvious reason, claim to be agents of change. What they are agents of opportunity. 4 years ago when Dick Devine ran, the same problems. All of them not only did not run, they supported Devine. And if Devine was running this time, no one would be up here but the two of us. So I think you have to take that into consideration in terms of who truly represents reform and who truly care. I care. And I think with your support, on February 5th, we can bring about the change, and I will have the privilege and responsibility of being the next state's attorney of Cook County.
Thank you. And to close it out, Mr. Milan.
A lot of Monday morning quarterbacks, aren't there? Well, talk is cheap, and action speaks louder than words. Where was Larry Suffredin complaining about the Cook County State's Attorney's Office prior to asking for your vote? Or Tom Allen talking about how bad a shape it was? Or Anita Alvarez talking about the status quo? Do you think she ever walked into a bureau chief meeting and said, we need to change everything? It's the status quo. What a joke. What a joke. Ask her one thing she changed in this office. I got to tell you, when I stood up to wrongful convictions and false confessions, it was pretty lonely up there. The first time a prosecutor ever did it. Chief deputy wasn't standing next to me. When I implemented mandatory videotaping of interrogations across this county, chief deputy didn't go around to the suburbs with me. When I tackled the 1,500 two-year-old cases in the felony system, chief deputy was nowhere to be found, nor the rest of these other guys. And when these poor prosecutors out here were going to be paid 12.75% less than the public defenders, I stood up for them. Chief deputy was nowhere to be found, nor were these other guys. You want to talk about passion? Passion's doing this job for 21 years and sometimes making tough, unpopular decisions because you love the job. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been an honor to have represented you as an assistant state's attorney. And I'd be grateful and honored to continue to serve you as the chief law enforcement officer, your next state's attorney. Thank you for having us today.
How about a big round of applause for all of them? 1 minute. It's late. Gentlemen, this will pass, and ladies, excuse me, this will pass any ethics ordinance, a 1-year membership free to the city club. Take one and pass it down. We'll check on your ethics. Same thing here. History of the city club. Definitely take one. We have people trying to take 2 and 3. And he says, have a mug. There you go. Great debate. It's over. Thank God.